Greetings all, can you hear me? I'm just working out the Facebook Live thing. So we are recording and we are transmitting to Facebook Live, I believe. So I have made it so that when you join, you are muted, but you should have the capability to unmute yourself. And when I actually begin the meeting, I will ask that you hold off on comments or questions until the end. But as we are recording, you can always type in the chat. That will also be recorded. And I think that I am going to show a short video and loop it. I'm going to wait 5 minutes. It's a virtual meeting. It's strange time to have it in midday and a beautiful weather day for us here. So we're sorry we're not in the field and doing this, but it's our first attempt at a virtual annual general meeting, which we normally hold in person. So I'm going to see if I can share a video. And also I just see that Maya Trotz came in. So I'm going to make her co-host and hopefully that she can watch and see as more people come in. And then I'm going to share a short video. Like I said, it's just 2 o'clock. And we said we'll wait 5 minutes to see if we get a few more people coming in. So Maya, you're there, right? So you're co-host now. So if I
am.
Super. So if I share my screen to show that little short clip, will you be able to see? Oh, look, Dave is coming. So exciting. Hi, Dave. That's very exciting. Super exciting. So let me see if I can share the screen to the short little case study video. It's just under 2 minutes. And we said that given that we've never really tried the virtual meeting before, we will wait 5 minutes or so to see who all may join us. So let me turn off my phone. Oh gosh, Maya, can you hear me? Jamani's saying he doesn't have the link. Can you forward it to Jamani? I thought
I'll
that.
send it.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Let me see now if I can share this video and let you guys let me know if you can hear the audio. This is the social media version of a case study that was released earlier this year through the Commonwealth Secretariat tab. Let's see, here it goes. Let's see if it plays and you guys can hear it. Are you seeing the video? Yes, I see. Thank you, Mark. So there are 3 main ecosystem services that coral reefs provide. Shoreline protection is a huge one. The others are fisheries benefit, and then the tourism and aesthetic value. A reef can only protect the shoreline if it's living. So if it's a dead reef, it will crumble up and get beaten up by the wave action and does not afford any protection at all. Likewise, you begin to lose biodiversity when your reefs die, so you won't have the same amount of fish and critters that are on your reef. So it's huge. We've trained over 60 Belizeans to date so far. We have now shown our corals to be sexually reproductive on their own, and we've been able to document that and document that they're viable, that they can make baby corals, which is the whole point. We're just sort of reseeding nature, giving nature a boost.
When the tour guides are personally involved in planting, they therefore, when they take out the tourists, they can educate them and spread the word.
Yes, it's a job for us, but that love we have for what we do is not just a job. My tour guide teacher told me none of this would be existing after 20, 25 years. All of that encouraged me to get on this team because I know this is what the future has to hold. And if I want my child, my grandchild coming up behind me to enjoy what I enjoy all my life, I have to continue to do what I'm doing.
All right, that only ate up 2 minutes. Can you guys hear me? Should I play it one more time and then we'll start the actual meeting? It's 2:02 Belize time. Yes? Are all the same people here? Nobody new entered? Maybe I should just go ahead and start. Any thoughts? Can you guys hear me? So should I play the little clip one more time and give a few more people a chance to log in?
Sure, Lisa.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you, Maya. You're still seeing it, right? And then when this is finished, then I'll go ahead and begin the meeting. There are three main ecosystem services that coral reefs provide. Shoreline protection is a huge one. The others are fisheries benefit, and then the tourism and aesthetic value. The reef can only protect the shoreline if it's living. So if it's a dead reef, it will crumble up and get beaten up by the wave action and does not afford any protection at all. Likewise, you begin to lose biodiversity when your reefs die, so you won't have the same amount of fish and critters that are on your reef. So it's huge. We've trained over 60 Belizeans to date so far. We have now shown our corals to be sexually reproductive on their own, and we've been able to document that and document that they're viable, that they can make baby corals, which is the whole point. We're just sort of reseeding nature, giving nature a boost.
When the tour guides are personally involved in planting, they therefore, when they take out the tourists, they can educate them and spread the word.
Yes, it's a job for us, but that love we have for what we do is not just a job. My tour guide teacher told me none of this would be existing after 25 years. All of that encouraged me to get on this team because I know this is what the future has to hold. And if I want my child, my grandchild coming up behind me to enjoy what I enjoy all my life, I have to continue to do what I'm doing.
Okay, super. So we have a few people, not a lot. I think that I'm going to go ahead and start. This is the first time that we've attempted to do this virtually. And it, like I said, it's an awkward time, middle of the day, and a beautiful day at that. So I picked the wrong day. We should be at sea. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for the actual talk that I wanted to give. And I think that we are showing this live on Facebook as well. So you can comment on the Facebook Live, or you can comment in the chat. But we do have time, I believe, for questions at the end. So let me see if I can share the right screen for the actual talk now. Let's see, there it is. Are we seeing the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Seeing it in presentation mode?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, super. So thank you everybody that took time out of today to do this. I probably should have said it a little bit later in the day. I thought that we would be sort of tacking on another meeting with the Mesoamerican Reef Restoration Network, but that didn't happen. So that's why it's kind of early in the day. So Maya, can I rely on you now to admit people into the room so I can just move forward with the meeting?
Yes.
Do we know if Tara is here yet? If not, then she is here. Is Tara okay to read the minutes when I get through reading the agenda? Is Tara on Facebook or on Zoom? I can't tell.
I don't see her.
Sorry,
on
I was
Zoom.
muted.
Oh, okay.
Can you
All
hear me
right.
now?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Okay, let me
Okay,
move
thanks.
forward with the, thank you, Tara. Let me move forward with the agenda. So Tara Westby and Dale Godfrey are with us, which are on the local board. And for those of you that may not know, Fragments of Hope was registered in Belize in 2013. So we have a local board made of community members. And also in 2015, we were able to register in the US as a 501c3 nonprofit. In Belize, we are registered as a community-based organization and registered as a not-for-profit. Oh, how do I change? Okay, so in Belize, what our requirements are as a community-based organization, and we have a set of articles of association, et cetera, is that we hold the minimum of one annual general meeting a year. And in the past, we've always, even last year, we were able to do it in public. We got in just when they changed the, I see 2 people entering the waiting room. Maya, are you on top of this, or do I need to do that? Admit, I'm doing it. Can you not see that, Maya? Just
I
checking.
admitted that.
What? Okay.
I admit.
Oops. So I didn't mean to go there so quickly. Sorry, guys. Okay, so the agenda, I'm moving away the screen. Can I? You don't see my participant thing, right? You just see the PowerPoint? Yes? So this is the agenda for today's meeting. Everybody can hear me okay? When I finish with this, we'll have Tara Westby read the minutes from last year's 2020 annual general meeting. We have an update on the number of nurseries, outplants, and mapping that we've been doing. Which is basically kind of a long PowerPoint. I'm going to skim over, assuming that most of you know about this work that's going on. And so if I skim over things too quickly, please feel free to contact us afterwards if you need more detailed information on anything that I share today. Then we'll be sharing which grants we've closed, which are ongoing, which are new, and a mention of certain donors and donations. And then I want to share with you in a little bit more detail this UNEP concept that we just had approved, and that's only for 12 months and what we hope to get done in the next 12 months. A very abbreviated bleaching and disease update, a mention of the cruise ports proposed because that's topical for Belize. Lots going on with developments. Updates mean what I know, what we know, not necessarily the latest updates. And then a brief mention of some articles, the textbook, of course. Thank you so much for joining, Dave, that Dave put together that we're on the cover on, some case studies, some accolades that we got. And then we have time for the questions and matters arising. So with that, let me see how I move forward. Just to give you a quick picture, last year, we had this meeting August 7th in 2020, and we were able to still have it in person. As you can see, we try to do our best with social distancing. Last year, we were allowed 25 participants, and we had those 25. So Tara, if you're ready, I guess this is the point where you would read the minutes. I'm not sure who all is here, because normally at a formal meeting, we would read the minutes from last year, and then we would have people that had attended that meeting approve or make amendments, or just move forward if I say that sounds about right. So I guess, Tara, if you're okay, we'll try it and see if there's anybody attending that was actually there last year. Oops, sorry, actually there last year as well. So we just abbreviated the minutes in kind of a bullet point little sentences. You ready, Tara?
Yes, yes. Ready when you are.
Okay.
Go ahead.
It's all on you.
All right. So for last year's AGM, this was August 7th, was held at Paradise Hotel in Placencia, and we had 25 participants due to the COVID restrictions. I'll start by saying we finished activities for 2 MARFund grants, Southern Sites and Mexico-Belize Exchange. Also began drone mapping in 2019. Wrapping up 3rd MARFund for national meeting in Belize City on SCTLD, and Lisa re-elected to represent Belize on Regional Reef Restoration Network for Mesoamerica. 4th point, finish activities under GEF grant. No longer have full-time outreach officer, so we will need assistance with social media. MCAP, wrapping up SWCMR and RTAMR.
Sorry, that's Southwater Key Marine Reserve and Turnaf Atoll Marine Reserve.
New MARFund approved August 2020 for mapping and southern sites. SCTLD history updates given, no longer pathogen caused yet.
Unknown, we don't know. So SCLTD is abbreviations for the stony coral tissue loss disease, which I will be giving a small update on again today. that is in country since 2019.
New nurseries in BCMR, Bacalar Chico Marine Reserve, and HCMR, which is, again, Lisa, Ho-Chan Marine Reserve. Okay, May 2020, related to SCTLD presence there, founded by MCAP, PGAFF, and private donors.
Okay, so PJAFF stands for Paul G. Allen Family Foundation, and MCAP stands for Marine Climate Change Conservation Adaptation Fund, something like that, which is what funded our work through World Bank and Adaptation Fund in Southwater Key Marine Reserve and Turneff Atoll 2016 through 2020 for viewers that are unfamiliar with these acronyms. But I will be showing a map in a minute too.
There's been over 12,000 corals outplanted in 2020. Nationwide total is 1,053,000 to date. Falls Key had highest mortality, bleaching, poor water quality, high nutrients in 2019. Member since 2014. Wait, sorry. Let me move on.
That's okay.
I'll repeat. Falls Key had highest mortality, bleaching, and poor water quality, and high nutrients in 2019. On another note, the National Coral Reef Monitoring Network, NCRMN, Lisa's been a member since 1999, and FOH, a member since 2014. Expanded on the National Reef Restoration Policy to distinguish between ecosystem restoration and artificial reef. NCRMN now asked to review all research permits application relating to any restoration. Lisa is nominated for Pew Fellowship update. Did not get it. WWF and MCAP tech reports now on the website. Bleaching review. 2019 was different as came peak later and lasted into January 2020. So delayed outplanting. Nutrient fate study conducted showed Placencia water quality very poor with high nutrients, which can affect bleaching severely. LBC considered best snorkeling. Question posed if COVID gave nature a break. 2021 plans include Art Gleason photo mosaics training here. Update postponed due to COVID until 2022. Ideas for fundraising. 1, charge non-Belizeans for training. Previous training 100% subsidized for Belizeans, including reef replenishment, courses for external universities, needs for transfer of knowledge, info, capacity building, website rewarding for donors. Update drafted has not been completed. Glenn Ely pointed out that despite FOH global recognition, not everyone knows extent of FOH work. That completes the minutes from last year's AGM.
Thank you, Tara. I know this is an unusual situation for all of us. Thank you for that. I'm unsure exactly how many people are attending that were there last year. Normally in a regular meeting, we would have someone approve the minutes that had been in attendance and then also second it. Or if there was anything they wanted to, change, they would have this opportunity now. So this is awkward for us because we've always done these in-person meetings in the past and usually in the late afternoon and the evening. So I don't know if anybody is present that was there in 2020 that could, I see somebody's raising their hand. Maya, can you do this stuff, Maya, or do I need to figure it out? Are you co-host still, Maya?
Vic is saying that we can raise our hands if you're present.
Last year? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, but I
So
think you
Vic-
have 14 people on Facebook also.
Oh, I don't know. Is there anyone on Facebook watching that was present last year that could sort of say that, yes, that was that's what happened last year? I see Marissa raising her hand.
Yes, Lisa.
Dale.
Dale, yeah. Was hoping for non-board members, but you know, I'll take what I can get right now.
Okay, that was my.
I know you guys were there, so
Annalise, I think she was this said she was sure she was there also.
yeah, so I don't know. I see Marissa. Marissa, can you, or Annalise that were there last year, can you just maybe formally type in the chat if you approve or second, or think that we missed something from last year that we need to edit? I mean, that's usually how we do in these semi-formal meetings. Again, this is unusual for us to do everything virtual. Oh, I mean, I think you can unmute yourselves as well, right? They can, right? I just set it so that when you entered, you were muted, I believe.
Hey, Lisa, this is Marissa. I approve the minutes. It sounds, it's a pretty good summary from what I remember from last year.
Thank you, Marissa. And I guess we'll just take one of our other board members as seconding it. Or Annalise, you willing to second the minutes, or do you have anything to add that we forgot?
Can you hear me, Lisa? Sorry, I have a problem with my microphone.
Oh, I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that sounds absolutely right to me from what I remember. So well done.
Super. Thank you, ladies. Really, thank you so much. I see there's stuff in the chat, but I'm unable to look at that while I'm trying to concentrate. So if there's a question to address in the chat, let's just, unless it's imperative, let's hold it till the end, because I want to try to kind of blaze through this. I don't want to take up more than up till 3 o'clock of your time and include time for questions. Are you all seeing the screen okay? The presentation I'm about to share with you is sort of morphed from the ICRS presentation that we gave, that we had to record in July of this year. And I'm just gonna kind of really breeze through it. Again, knowing many of you know what's going on and some of you may not. So those of you that are less familiar with our work, you can either ask us questions at the end or message us later. I think my email is showing, right? And obviously we're on Facebook as well. So a quick overview. Again, these are the areas we're working. This is a map of Belize. We are based in Placencia, which isn't really showing. Can you see my cursor or no, when I'm showing the cursor on the Zoom? Anyway, we're near False Key at the bottom of the map. Placencia is in this area. And so that's where we started working. And then we added some new sites in northern Belize last year, directly in response to fisheries requests because of the stony coral tissue loss. Oops. Sorry, guys. Because of the stony coral tissue loss disease presence up there since 2019. So I'm going to breeze through this. Let me see. I don't know why I automatically went through. Our strategy to date, hopefully you're seeing on the image, I don't know how to get rid of the side of you guys, all I see right there on my screen. Some pictures of corals that are bleaching and not bleaching. There is a lot of genetics involved in the work that we do from day one. And so each of these species have different individuals, just like you and I are different individuals, and they display different growth patterns and different bleaching patterns. And they actually hold those over time. So let's see, yes. So here the top picture on the right-hand side of your screen is when these were outplanted in like, I think it was 2010, but this picture is from 2011. And then you see on the bottom, I think the picture was from 2020. And you see the same coral that bleached was bleaching again, much bigger, of course, and it's kind of fell to the side from Hurricane Earl in 2016, but the other coral behind it didn't bleach again. So they're holding their bleaching patterns. And the good news is this photo was from a few months later in 2020, they did recover completely for the most part from bleaching. And we've also documented the spawning. Annalise, who's here, had contributed some of the photographs for the spawning in several years ago. We did not do spawning this year, but later on I'll be talking about our plans for spawning in 2020. I'm assuming you all can read the slides as we go along. So thanks to Mike Beck, who has given us permission to use this slide, what shows that we've intuitively known all the while, which is the top meter of reef is the most important part for shoreline protection. So this is why we've been working in the shallow areas from day one, and this kind of sets our work apart from a lot of other restoration initiatives, is that we've always been in these shallow fringing reef areas. That's where the acroporids thrive, and that's what gives the most shoreline protection. The map on the left here is just using, I see waiting, admit, oh, Michelle, wow. I see, sorry, on the left-hand side, we create these maps just with like, you know, in water and GPS. And the color codes on the left-hand side refer to who provided the data sets for us. So AGRA is Atlantic Gulf Rapid Reef Assessment. FOH is us. Fogarty is Nicole Fogarty, who is now at University of North Carolina, and UB is University of Belize. So they had provided, that's what those color codes mean. On the right-hand side of the map is the first time we did drone work with citizen science group, and it worked well, and it does work well for land stuff, but it didn't really work for the shallow underwater mapping, which we'll talk about in more detail later. And these color codes are really just by year, the year that we've outplanted around Laughing Bird Key. And this is just one example of our oldest site where over 87,000 corals have been outplanted now. I don't use the arrow button, I use this, yes. So in the past, we relied a lot on time series photographs, and that's what Dave Vaughn had chose for the cover of the textbook, which I'll be highlighting later, is that they are very powerful. So this goes counterclockwise from 2010 for a whole decade. It's the same little palmata and same bits of staghorn and thing. And Annalise, I think, was involved in that initial outplanting. And on these plots that we are quantifying with photomosaics, we do not add any other corals after we do the initial outplanting. So on the right-hand side of the screen, you see the perimeter of the original plot. And you can hopefully see, even though it looks different, that there's a lot of corals outside of that plot. And this is what we've been struggling with for a while on how to quantify all this work. Wait, I think I missed something. So this particular subsite 13 is about 180 meters squared. And let's see what's next. This is all of the results from the 6 photomosaic quantified plots that we have at Laughing Bird Key. And we've been doing this since 2014. So left to right on the graph is newest to oldest sites. So subsite 24 and 2013 on the x-axis here were the only sites at Laughing Bird that had not been outplanted when we first did the photomosaics protocol. So that's our that was our sort of baseline, and that's how we know at Laughing Bird Key there was less than 6% live coral cover on most of these shallow sites. It was just rubble for the most part. And then what I'm showing on the right-hand side of the screen is different, oh, sorry guys, not used to this. Different images. On the top right is from a regular diver viewpoint. Can I go back one? Yeah, and on the bottom right, this is the actual diver-based mosaic reduced, again, with the outline showing you on this particular plot. This is subsite 20, and it's just over 100 odd meters squared. And you can see there's corals outside of the plot. So, you know, later when I talk about the drone, this is one of the things we needed to address, is how to quantify all this stuff outside of the plot. And then this other image here is from the drone, but it's not a mosaic, it's just a still image, but it kind of gives you an idea that things look a little bit different from the drone. This is a very busy, a lot of information here. I'm not going to go through it, but I just wanted to share with you that these are where those 6 subsites are on the leeward and the windward side of Laughing Bird Key. So I don't know if you can see my cursor, but from left to right in the image, 24 and 23 were the ones that were unplanted as yet in 2014. 21 and 20 had just been planted about 8 months before we did the first mosaic in 2014. versus 9 and 13 had been outplanted way back in 2010. And we did the first photomosaics in 2014. And this is showing you, instead of total change in coral cover, we're looking at just the annual changes in coral cover on these 6 sites at Laughing Bird Key by each year where we have it. And the take-home message here from left to right is those blue bars that are the highest ones, like above 15% change in 1 year. Those sites have been outplanted just about 4 years, 3 to 4 years, before you see the big jump in annual changes. Likewise, the far right-hand side with the orange bar, which says LBCNP 13, because that was outplanted in 2010, that data set is about 4.5 years old as well. So the drive home point here, I don't know why it's moving on its own. I'm so sorry, guys. The drive home point of this slide, which I lost again, this slide here, is that even in our fast growing situation, it's really taking 3 to 4 years before we start to see these 10 to 15 and above changes in percentage of live coral cover. So that's really the take home message from all this busy information. And this was also just to exemplify that it's the increase in acroporids. So at Laughing Bird in the shallow areas, we don't have a huge diversity of hard corals. There's only a handful of different species here. And we're showing on the left-hand side a single site 13, subsite 13. And we're showing 2015, which had already been outplanted at 4.5 years, and then 2020. And so those images are representing the staghorn increase in volume. The little orange solid bar is the palmata, and we only put a few out at this particular site. And the next image above is the prolifera or the hybrid. And again, this is just to drive home the message that it's these acroporids that are flourishing and thriving. It's not because we're seeing a huge increase in the other species. Yet this is a question we want to answer in the long term as well. What's happening with the other species? I'm not going to go through a lot of details on this. This is from Moho Key, and this is just to let you know that we're trying to do this exact same type of work at as many replenishment sites as we can. So Moho Key is just north of Laughing Bird, but it's unprotected, whereas Laughing Bird is a no-take zone. And these are 3 photomosaic plots that we also began before we outplanted. So in the graph that you're seeing, the orange bars, oh gosh, I'm so sorry, guys. The orange bars mean we had not added anything yet. And then we outplanted. And so you're seeing these nice gradual increases of percent of coral cover at these sites. But again, this is just to let you know with the drone image next to it as well, that we're trying to do this in as many of our outplant sites as we can to get a good picture of what's changing, what's growing. I'm going to skip through this in the interest of time, but this is looking at general benthic categories. And on the left-hand side was the average of the 2 plots at Laughing Bird that were never outplanted. So starting from rubble to reef. And then on the right-hand side was the average of 3 plots at Moho. And we have submitted a more detailed abstract for Reef Futures on these 5 sites. So I'm going to skim through this now, get to the drone work. I don't know if Jamani wants to take over, or let me just run through this really quickly in the interest of time. It's 2:30. It's up to you, Jamani. You can unmute yourself, but Jamani helped put together some of these animations. Let's see if it shows. So yeah, so you guys are seeing those color codes appear, right? So the drone work was the first time that we were able to actually try to quantify outside of all those small plots, right? So from 2019 was the first time we were able to definitively say that we had replenished over 20% of a hectare of shallow reef. And then now we're able to do this annually, just like the photomosaics, and start looking at those changes over time. And I will say that we did add some corals between this year, but for the most part, we're doing the microfragmenting. So that doesn't really show up on the drone so much. So we have some caveats we need to discuss about the drone work, but basically when we compare to other natural stands, we see an increase. These acroporids are adapted and naturally spread over time with minor disturbance events. Once it's not catastrophic, that's actually how they spread and grow asexually. So we saw a big change from this stand at loggerhead, which was calculated as almost 1,000 meters squared of staghorn in 1 year. That jumped up from natural spreading. And the nice thing about the drone is that we also were able to discover some prolifera in this patch that we didn't know was there. And then we started looking, we had for those of you who don't know, we had a Category 1 hurricane in September of 2020. And we also had our most major bleaching event to date in Belize in 2020. So you're seeing, you know, these prolifera near the surface just bleached bone white. And so the drone could have a lot of different applications that were in discussion with other colleagues with bleaching, different ways to quantify, you know, what's happening out there on a larger scale than we can do. But with that said, you still have to ground truth a lot of this. So you can't, everything can't be remote. You still need to, you know, get that time in the water as well. Switching over to Silk Keys, this is another example of some time series with, we have a lot more than just these two images I'm showing. Silk Keys is 19 miles away from Placencia. It's often, you know, everything we do is restricted by weather, which was why it's so painful that we missed today, because I set this date for, you know, in advance, and today it was just perfect. And we've had very few of these perfect weather days this year. So the drone images on the left are showing some shifts. And the major question, you know, for all of the erosion that we're seeing in southern Belize and elsewhere, I guess in the Caribbean, is how much of that is climate change, how much of that is natural shifting and shaping. And so we're trying to find, I'm sorry guys, I don't know why it keeps moving by itself. We're trying to find ways to quantify this. So you're looking at two drone images of South Silk Key in August 2020 and November 2020, but of course we have other data sets. And on the right hand side, we're showing here a time series of the microfragment technique that we've been using since 2017 with a lot of different modifications as we go along. With the palmata, this means the elkhorn coral, we don't need nursery time anymore. So this is a time series from when they were outplanted to 1 year later. And then on the bottom, while they did bleach severely in 2020, they recovered and they're doing nicely. But of course, again, the drone won't pick this up. So we have a lot of questions like, at what point will they get large enough that we can, you know, get these on the drone? Because these sites are way too shallow to do the diver-based photomosaics. You just can't even swim over it with the big lens. So moving on to the grants happening, closed and current and potentially new ones. The MCAP, which is the Marine Conservation and Climate Change Adaptation Program that was mentioned in the minutes before, it actually formally ended September of 2020. The GF is Global Environmental Fund. It used to be Compact. That formally ended, even though a lot of the times the activities end, it still takes time for the paperwork and everything to get approved. So that formally ended in 2020. And WWF, we had one that just ended this year. MAR Fund, we formally closed off two of them last year. SPA, I forget the acronym, I'm sorry, it's about species protection something, and I applied for a very small grant. I think I asked for 10,000 euros and we got 6, but that facilitated this December training that we did in Key-Cocker and outplanting trials that we did up there, again, due to the stony coral tissue loss and fisheries request. PGAFF is the Paul G. Allen Foundation, Family Foundation in combination with Vulcan, and that allowed the first training that we did last May 2020, and also is part of our collaboration with the Smithsonian Institute looking at the stony coral tissue loss stuff, which I'll talk about in a minute. So then we just had another MAR Fund one approved last year, and we are extending that till February, and that's more about the mapping that I was showing you with the drone, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. We just got approved a little bit of small money for the stony coral tissue loss through WWF, and then we're also managing Smithsonian money facilitating Healthy Reefs Initiative work like the AGRA training and monitoring they'll be doing this year. Then we did get an approved concept from UNEP and ICRI. UNEP is United Nations Environmental Program. ICRI is International Coral Reefs Initiative, maybe, sorry. And we hope that we're getting more from WWF. We're not sure. I'm going to talk about the UNEP one in a minute. We did just recently get approved by 1% for the Planet. We were recommended by somebody. I'd never heard of it. It's kind of vets like other nonprofits so that corporations can feel confident that they're donating, they can pick and choose. It was interesting when I was applying for it after the nomination, they didn't really have any categories for what we do. So we're kind of vaguely in there for environment stuff. So they didn't really have specific to marine, much less restoration. The private donations, we need to break those down by categories. As we in the minutes noted, we're going to change the text. We're no longer going to call it membership because we had some confusion from private donors thinking that perhaps they would have their donation renewed every year because it was a membership, and that is not the case. If you donate through the website, it is a single time donation. So we're going to change that, but we do have it by dollar amount. So like up to 2,000 US, and then between 2 and 10, and then over 10. So by the end of the year, we'll have that broken down by how many categories we've had donors. So last year, I think through the private donation website, we had around 17,000 US, and this year to date, we've already got at least 15,000 US. A lot of that was from the BBC article, which I'll be mentioning towards the end of this. And then what I do want to share in detail is, I don't know how well you can see this, but this is the UNEP approved concept. And so it's for 80,000 US, but we have to channel the money through someone else because we're working on getting audited. And so we're having a lot of growing pains. We can't, get the larger money until it's like a chicken and egg or egg and chicken thing, because we don't have the money to hire full-time staff and do these things and jump through the hoops that we need to do to access the larger funds. So it's very frustrating. That's why you see so many things on the screen that we were managing at the same time. But anyway, if this comes through, it was to fund basically bleaching monitoring for the entire country of Belize, just kind of dish that out to our co-managers and partners. And if you can see on these maps, in 2008, we did a lot of surveys. 2017, we did a few. And last year in 2020, frankly, very little was done. And it was our worst bleaching years yet. And yes, it was COVID, but that's not the real story. So only 2 sites were shared with us from fisheries up north. And then we did a lot of these, and we assisted Tide did some of these. So in other words, a big bulk of this money was to make sure that hopefully this year we can get nationwide surveys done, not only for the bleaching, but also for the stony coral tissue loss, and then follow up on our photomosaics on our multiple outplant sites, et cetera, et cetera. And also we built in for contingency funds in case we, don't want, but in case there's a storm or extreme other type of event. Let me move forward. I'm not sure how we're doing on time. This is our ideal organization chart for Fragments of Hope. Our US board member, Sarah, helped me try to edit this, and I realized that font is terrible, but it's the automatic font. So the green indicates what exists. And so we already have the local board members, which are not paid. We have myself, which we're still debating how much, I should be making. And then we have the US nonprofit, and we have a different board member with myself as the crossover, and those are not paid either. What we would like is to be able to hire more full and part-time staff. And so we would like to see an operations manager. We would like to see site coordinators. These are just examples. We have not done anything in Glover's Reef, but just as an example, like Keycocker, San Pedro, Turnef that wants to continue the work, Saltwater Key and Placencia, these don't exist. So we would like to have these part-time, and then we would like to have all the people that we've trained work as they work with us down here, which is on call, which is weather dependent. And then I made some different colors here for the accountant, data processing, and outreach officer, because we don't really have them part-time. We have a very small budget for contractual assistance for a limited period of time. So we have a long ways to go still. Now I wanted to give you, I forgot to add the AGRA website. I wanted to give you the AGRA website, which is www.aggra.org. And then you can see this map from the right hand side is from Patricia Kramer, who is managing or working with AGRA on that website. And this is the stony coral tissue loss disease reported throughout the Caribbean to date. Literally, she sent this to me yesterday. So it's our reporting here and some others that are in southern Belize where we now know the stony coral tissue loss is right in our backyard because we work in Saltwater Key. So we did some formal, when I say formal, these are Melanie Mcfield's rapid swim bar assessments, which means looking at 200 coral colonies per site and assessing normally for bleached or other types of diseases, new and old mortality. And so this is for a single site, which is this, this red mark here at Southwater Key Marine Reserve for July and August of this year. And you can see that this is by date, right? So July and August. So the stony coral tissue loss is increasing the amount and frequency of the corals. And I will say anecdotally, this dive is conducted around 40 to 50 feet. And we're seeing the spread more shallow, like around 20 to 25 feet. It's on everything and it's all through the Saltwater Key channel. This is not good news, but I mean, we expected it. But so we are working nationally to begin more treatment and training and follow up with that. Again, I'm sorry I didn't put the website in here. Maybe someone that's listening could easily put it in the chat. Is www.aggra.org. And that site, you can follow through all this information on the stony coral tissue loss disease. So here I am sharing now from a couple different sites. This is the same site we looked at in Saltwater Key, 2 sites in Saltwater Key Marine Reserve, and then 2 shallow 4 reef sites in Gladden, Spit, and the Silk Keys Marine Reserve. Because we were getting bleaching alerts already and worried about the spread of disease, we took a look at some of these shallow 4 reef sites in Gladden on the far right-hand side of the graph in July. And so the bleaching was fairly consistent. You're only seeing the bleaching at the Gladden sites. We did not see any presence of the stony coral tissue loss disease, but you know, that doesn't mean it's not coming. And so nationally, we're working together on, you know, how we're going to prioritize treatment. Again, if you've never heard of this, please visit that website or message us later. And there's a lot of information about this. Last year at the AGM, we gave the whole history on it and everything else. So I'm gonna keep going in the interest of time. I wanted to share with you that after we did have elections this year, last year, November, and so our government changed parties completely. And we were pretty thrilled to be invited to a new ministry that was created, the Blue Economy Ministry. And they invited several NGOs to what they call the cluster, to sort of as an interim group to help these new party members figure out what was going on. But by the second meeting, it was clear that they are branding cruise ship tourism as part of the blue economy. And we just didn't feel comfortable. You don't have to read all this letter. If you really want to see it, I can share it with you later. But we resigned, Fragments of Hope resigned from the Blue Economy Cluster in February, just after the second meeting. And we didn't really go public with it. There's been a lot of stuff about the different cruise ship ports. I'm going to touch on it very briefly because it is topical for us. I'm going to share the most recent, we've been sending letters, of course, as always, and I'm going to share the most recent letter here was just 17th of August regarding an addendum. So for those of you that don't know, there were 3 there's a lot of cruise ship ports on the plan. We already have Harvest Key. We already have Stake Bank, which is in northern Belize by Belize City approved. And then on the table was Port Magical, which is just south of Belize City. And then also the existing commercial port of Belize, right in Belize City, right? And that's a cargo port, and they're proposing to make it a cruise ship port. And so what flared to us immediately was in that, besides all the other issues about cruise ships, was with the Port of Belize expansion, they wanted to dump a bunch of the spoils from the dredging between the main barrier reef and Turnef. And so this letter that you're looking at from August is due to the fact that we had a lot of input for that, and the NEAC, which are the decision-making body for these proposals, said, you know what, you can't dump offshore. You need to go back to the table. But when they went back to the table with the addendum, the problem was it wasn't really publicly shared, or a lot of us didn't realize that they had done this addendum. And in the addendum, it simply moves dumping all those spoils to the nearshore sites by the coastline, as opposed to between the main barrier reef and Turnef Atoll. And so I just share with you and circled this, that, you know, part of the problem for Fragments of Hope is that, you know, given COVID, we believe that Belize should be moving forward to move away from reliance on mass tourism, because we've seen with COVID that model doesn't work anymore. And so it's kind of disheartening that the attitude seems to be just to increase the old ways that weren't really working well. And I bring this up because I can't avoid the news, and we just all saw in the news that there will be this old barge sunk in Turnef. And one of the blurbs, this just came out officially on Monday, and then I was getting a lot of messages on Tuesday about it. But I bring it to the attention here because I wanted to make it official that Fragments of Hope was not a part of this consultation. We didn't really know anything about it formally, like the rest of many Belizeans that messaged me yesterday and Monday. It was news to us when we saw the press release. So just to make that clear, the Belize National Coral Reef Monitoring Network, as was read in the minutes, we have a national policy that outlines specifically what is ecosystem restoration versus what is artificial reefs. And so they do have their place, you know, but it should not be confused with restoration ever. And the reason I circled my point of number 6 here is that it seems apparent to me the move for sinking of the ship is the same sort of lack of innovation, and that what they're looking at doing, I could be wrong, is just charging tourists an additional fee for a new site they're creating. So they're looking, again, relying on tourism to fund management of the marine resources. And I'm just suggesting that that old way of thinking is not working anymore. And I won't dwell anymore on that. I wanted to share with you as well, this is a draft on the left-hand side of satellite imagery. I mentioned the mapping with the drones and why we're doing that for both restoration and natural aquaports. But we're also very concerned with the amount of development in our inner keys near Placencia. So again, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but on the left-hand image, this atoll is Laughing Bird Key Atoll. And then all of this crazy little shallow reefs is what we call the inner key reefs area. And if you go to Google Earth, or even Planet, the new Planet stuff, it doesn't always have the best resolution for looking at these things. And while we're still on the fence about, in terms of the shallow reef mapping, if it's alive or dead with the satellite imagery, what it certainly can show you is change in mangrove cover, landfill, new scars over time, dredging scars, new areas that are filled. The image on the right is Colson Key, which is one of our first keys leaving from Placencia. We just saw this happening the other day. I don't think I'm going to share a video, but it's on our YouTube that we did last year with a compilation of all the different dredging and filling and development that's happening in our inner keys. And there's a lot of confusion about when you need permits, when you need EIA, who's monitoring this stuff, what's going on. And why it's concerning is that this is really our shoreline protection for the peninsula, because on the eastern facing of our peninsula is sand, it's not mangroves. So we really need these inner keys and mangrove keys and shallow reefs for our shoreline protection. So we've been working for a few years on how best to quantify this, visualize it, make it clear. When you look at, even when EIAs are done, they're in isolation and they're not done like the cumulative impact of multiple concurrent projects that's happening. So there's a lot of issues on the table right now. And I'm going to hopefully be soon done in time for questions. So articles and textbooks, again, I'm just sort of blurbing them here, but if you need the link, message us, we can get the link. The image here is Dave Vaughn's textbook that he edited and asked us to be on the cover. We were so thrilled. It is available for non-Belizeans via Amazon or the direct publishing site. we were able to purchase a few at a discounted price from when they first released it. So I do have a few in country, which Maya and some other folks have brought in for me. So if you want to get a copy of this, it's not just us, we have a chapter, but like every sort of groundbreaking or important restoration project is highlighted in multiple case studies that Dave put together. A lot of people worked on this, including genetics and all over the world, not just the Caribbean. And then this year we had a BBC article, some podcasts. We've signed an agreement with C-Corps. Again, if you've not heard of them, they're very well known for doing the sexual reproduction work, and they're experimenting with aiding that where you don't have land-based nurseries, because we do not in Belize. Dave Vaughn and I, if he's still here, were a thesis advisor to Dan Meal, who did his master's in U.S. Virgin Islands, and thankfully, took a real quantitative look at, directly outplanting corals versus putting them in the land-based nursery. We were also co-authored on a coral reefs publication with Dr. Justin Bauman, who has finished his PhD and is now teaching. If you want a copy of that, I can give you that. We have several upcoming filming and documentaries planned, as well as several that have been done in the last year. And then Victor Fox, who's on our board, and another young tour guide, Andres, who is not formally trained with us, but has been volunteering. Both of these men were participating in the recent training that was funded by Marfan and TNC in San Pedro, which has to do with creating a brigade and a rapid reef response, a rapid restoration response specific to storm impacts. And so there was a lot involved there, and they just finished a lot of that training. We were also highlighted as the United Nations Decade of Restoration, one of the first of 50 implementers. I can share the link with you. When you go to the link, there's only, I think, 3 marine folks, and 1 is seagrass, us, and then in Colombia for corals as well. And so these are some other resources there. And this is just a screenshot of that UN United Nations ecosystem restoration, what it looks like when you go. If you want the link, I can share the link with you guys. And I think that's all I have. And now I have, yes, barely made it through for time for questions. I mean, we have as much time as you want. I just didn't want to take up too much time of people. So if you have any questions, if you're on Facebook, you can type them in the chat. If you're on Zoom, you can, I think, unmute yourself. And I also forgot to say in the beginning, for those of you on Zoom, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and type in your name and organization so that I have kind of an attendance record, for say that we had this formal annual general meeting, although virtually due to COVID situations. And then I can stop sharing. And you all can just look at me and yourselves. And again, thank you everybody for taking time out of this beautiful day. For those of you that are have joined us. And I know I kind of breezed through a lot of stuff. So again, if you have more detailed questions, you have some time now, or anything you want to ask me about, you can message us via email, via Facebook, any way you want to do it.
Barbara Hall has a question on Facebook. What about the new branding of a Belize barrier reef? Are you involved with that?
Oh, I think I know what she means. I think, and Alicia is here with us. Thank you, Alicia, for joining. I think she's referring to the branding that WWF worked really hard on with BTB as well, I think, and it's about the World Heritage Sites, if I'm not mistaken. And if I am mistaken, I can look it up for you and find it later. And we were involved only as stakeholders and attended several meetings on that. If anyone, like Nicole, if anyone here can speak to that better, feel free, but I think that's what she's referring to. Let me see if I can look at the chat. Oh, people are just putting their names. Thank you. I thought that was like some clarification. Is anybody here, like Nicole or Alicia? Did I answer that correctly? Do you think that's what Barbara Hall is referring to? I'm guessing that's what she's referring to. There was a big push with WWF and I think BTB and other government partners to sort of bring attention to the fact that we, you know, have a World Heritage Site system here. And so I believe it's 7 different MPAs. So there was a big branding initiative for that, yes.
There's another Facebook question from Colleen Eck. What needs to happen outside of your primary mandate that can facilitate core restoration in Belize?
What needs to happen outside of the primary mandate, which I'm not sure what the primary mandate is, but what needs to happen is we need more funding. So we, if you look at the funding that people like in NOAA and CRF are getting in Florida, for example, in US territories, the US Virgin Islands just got, you know, 2.5 million or something, right? I forget, with NSF grants. We are working with PECA-links, what we say in Belize, like it's small amounts of money, very small amounts of money. And so if we even had a fraction, you know, of that, we could be doing 50 times more because, you know, yeah, we just operate on a different, much smaller scale of expenses than most of the US based organizations and US territories. And so for even a fraction of what they're spending up there, we could be doing triple the amount. And so I did share our organizational chart, and you can contact me afterwards if you missed it. But we have a vision for how we can expand this. We have some conversations already with government and with TASA and with the short term. I mean, the UNEP money is literally for 12 months. We have to spend that by the end of next quarter. And so that's, you know, that's crazy. This type of work really needs, you know, minimum, as I showed earlier in the talk, even at our fastest growing sites, it takes 3 to 4 years to start to see that incremental jump in coral coverage. So when you're talking about ecosystem restoration, it is not 12 months, it is not 24 months, it is very long term. And as we all know, you know, reefs are much even older than that. And so we need to rethink how we're funding this type of work and where we're going to get it from. For example, I mentioned I do not want to rely on tourism because of COVID and, you know, potentially other, you know, catastrophes that could affect tourism. So where should this money be coming from? That is a question that I'm posing for everybody. I personally feel like I would take it from the oil companies over a cruise ship company any day, because we all rely on electricity. We've all been using that electricity. And I do feel that they should be paying. There are questions out there in the internet world and the restoration world, if that's not greenwashing, you know, if Exxon is going to pay this amount of money, I'm just saying as an example or whatever. But it's case by case, right? And in my mind, those are the climate polluters. The other ones are shipping and airline companies and things like that. So that is where I think we should be trying to get money from, you know, to fund this type of restoration work. And I'll say it again, I've said it before, that remember in the Caribbean, we are not the major emitters, right? So we, Caribbean wise, we are not the ones that are emitting all of these greenhouse gas issues that are causing, you know, the climate change. It is not us. And yet we are suffering, just like the Arctic, the extreme areas are suffering the most. So I pose that question to everybody: who should pay? You know, who should be paying, and how should we be funding this?
Dave has his hand up. Dave, just unmute yourself.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, very good presentation again, Lisa. Thank you. Always appreciate that review. I did have a neat interest in basically the drones. And I think that is great. And I don't know if you or Jamani should be answering this, but when you show the drone pictures, are the colored components ones that you put in yourself from ground truth observations, or does the drone able to pick up from the pictures?
I'm unsure if Jamani is here, but no, the drone doesn't do that. The drone, so I showed a couple just screenshots, not that actual mosaics. And when you saw the color codes for the acroporids, that is hand drawn. So they have to be able to use ArcGIS or the open source QGIS software. And then because the drone mosaics are geo-referenced, I see Jamani's online, so you could take over, Jamani. They have to upload that into those programs. And then in most cases, they are hand drawing and identifying those acropores. And that's why the ground truthing is so crucial, because it looks very different from the drone image than it does in real life. And so many times, you know, we're sharing screens remotely, like, oh, is this or is this that? And I'm like, back up, let me see the key, because I know where everything is around the key. But then forget those people that are annotating the mosaics into the water is crucial, because then they know too where the corals really are. But I don't know if you want to add to that, Jamani. So there's a lot of different layers and steps in this work, and software and costs.
So yeah, you pretty much covered it, Lisa. Dave, so it's basically just creating polygons over the corals that we can see from the drone imagery, and then using tools inside the open source QGIS to measure the area of the polygons. But there is potential for expanding into using machine learning to kind of classify automatically the different species of corals in the photomosaics.
Yeah, well, that still looks really good. I love the, you know, the photographs from there. You know, I came from the time when we had to take an individual picture of every microfragment every month and turn it into the government. And that was, you know, thousands of pictures, which is impossible to get a handle on. I loved when Art Gleason and some of those other people started doing the photomosaics of a way to, you know, do an area. And a 10 by meter by 10 by meter area is pretty big, but it's nice data. But I love the drone because you can see the entire Laughing Bird Cay and get a laughing bird's eye view of what's taking place there. So that's great. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is a little costly and high tech. So we're hoping these things become more user friendly, and we're hoping to build more capacity. We're really glad we have Jamani on board, who is Belizean and has his master's from, say it. You got your master's in coastal engineering.
Coastal engineering and port development from IHE Delft.
Awesome. Are there any other questions on Facebook? Or anybody here have any more questions or comments?
Yes, I just wanted to thank you all for having me. I'm Sochi Claire. I'm a PhD candidate with Belizean Heritage at the University of California, Santa Barbara. And I'm always excited. I've been in touch with groups like Tide, and I'm so happy to learn more about the work that you're doing here at Fragments of Hope. And a lot of my work is looking at the effects of ocean warming on invertebrates, like that are mostly fish, but also I'm interested in thinking about potentially corals. And I just wanted to know, especially since funding is such a big issue, what are ways that potentially US-based scientists like myself can collaborate and assist with some of these efforts? You know, obviously any drop in the pile is something. So sometimes there's opportunities to get funding, and how can scientists like myself continue to work with groups like Fragments of Hope?
Thank you so much for attending. I think we might have lost Maya, because I was going to have Maya answer this, but I think she also had to teach an online class. So the short answer is that if you have a research proposal, the fisheries department has, you know, a whole set of criteria that you need to apply to get that research permit. And that if you wanted to work with Fragments of Hope or discuss in more detail later how we could do that, we're happy to have that discussion. But I'll give you an example of like the best partner that we've had so far. And then you can go from there, because we've had varying levels of different external partners and different levels of support. But our favorite partner to date has been Justin Bauman, that I mentioned, that recently published in Coral Reefs, because he wrote a grant from Ruford, and when he came down here, he left his he left most of his equipment with us. And then he wrote another one where the roofer money came directly to us to support the following year of the work. And so these types of arrangements are of course ideal if we get left with equipment and even financial support. That was, you know, the cat's meow. And then we got the co-authorship on the Coral Reef publication as well. So, I mean, that's a perfect scenario picture of how, but I will say with the caveat that in general, you know, the publication that I can share with you that he published was only for 17 months or 19 at the most. And in general, I do not approve of these short-term, you see a lot of headlines and a lot of publications on corals that are for very short term. And we know that that is not realistic when you're looking at big picture stuff. But still, it needs to get out there. You know, I'm not in academia, so I don't have that publish or perish type of mentality that that most academics do. But that's sort of a best case scenario, you know, and we've dealt with every other step in between of collaborators, you know, like Dave has brought us a few gear in here and there when he can and that type of thing. And, you know, and it will take whatever we can get as long as it's aligning with the work that and the goals that we want to achieve. And of course, always in partnership with the fisheries department, because that's where we get our research permit and we have to renew that every year and vet everything with them as well.
Thank you for sharing. Yes, I'll definitely be in touch. A lot of the things that I've been thinking about lately is the fact that some corals, as you know, can pass on resilience. And that's some of the work that we're doing on invertebrates in my research group, is thinking about how some species in shorter generation times than we think can pass on thermal resilience. I know everyone's thinking about strong corals and things like that, and that's not my area of expertise, but it's something that I'd be happy to provide some of my knowledge towards if that's helpful.
Are you aware that Dr. Robert Trench was a university professor at Santa Barbara? You know that he recently passed on. So he was a great friend and mentor of ours and a born Belizean that was one of the first to identify the symbiosis with invertebrates and symbiodiny. I can't say it right. It's not zooxanthellae, right? Because that's the general term. But anyway, he's like, why aren't people saying it right? I said, Bob, we just learned how to say and spell zooxanthellae, so we're all still saying that. So anyway, rest in peace. Bob was a great guy. So he was at Santa Barbara.
Yes, unfortunately, I missed him while he was here, but thank you so much.
Thanks for attending. Is there anyone else? Natalia, you can unmute yourself if you have a question.
Yeah, Lisa, thank you very much. Hi, everybody. It was really nice to hear you and like see your more about how you see the restoration and all your talks about it. I want to kindly ask you, it would be possible for us to have a copy of the presentation that you shared with us today?
Sure.
And also, I have a more technical question. It was like in one of your first slides, you show us like in like the difference coverage each year from 2014 to 2021, I think so. And
2020, yeah.
2015, you can see how the corals even like they don't grow. They like just reduce each year, in each side. You know why what's happening?
I'm not sure what slide you're referring to. The slides that I showed showed the increases in the coral cover on each quantified plot annually. And the big jump was 3 to 4 years after outplanting. I forgot to mention, however, though, that there was a hurricane category 1 in 2016. So, if you're referring to the slide where you saw the drop, I forgot to mention that. Yes, we had a hurricane category 1 in August of 2016, Hurricane Earl, and that flattened several of our sites. And that's where you saw the dip or the drop. Is that the one you're referring to when you saw the change in coral cover go down?
No, but I also noticed that, and it made sense in the one that I was asking for.
Okay, yeah, so we did have a category 1 hurricane in 2016 in August. And unfortunately that happened right before, literally like a week or less than 2 weeks before we did the photomosaics work. And then we had and that affected actually the leeward side more than the windward side, which again, when we're talking about planning and ensuring reefs and things, it's not always the windward side that will get it the worst because of the shape of storms and the way that the like Dave could tell me, you know, the backside or the south, whatever, the different gyros with the storm. So in 2016, it actually flattened the leeward side sites worse than the windward side sites. And that storm was category 1 and actually hit directly up by Turnef, which is over 60 miles north of us, and did more damage than the category 1. Again, when you say category 1, there's a wide range of winds and intensities, you know, each storm is different. And so last year in September, we had Hurricane Nana in early September that hit us much closer to home across Saltwater Key, and yet didn't do nearly as much damage as Hurricane Earl did in 2016, which actually hit further up, although both were labeled as category 1. So, you know, like everything else, there's qualifications to, you know, when we talk about storms and storm damage, and it's not a matter of if, but when, because we know that, you know, we're just going to keep getting more storms, and even storms that are so-called tropical depressions or not even make it to a category 1. We've seen effects from those that don't even jump that category 1 level. So it's just depend, you know, everyone is different. So you can't blanketly say like, you know, but we are proud to say that we have survived 2 Cat 1 hurricanes, multiple bleaching events. And, you know, we pose the question over and over again is, what is the definition of resilience? We know that reefs, you know, are very old aged, but we don't think that there's anyone else that has the years of survivorship that we have. We think that Puerto Rico was right there with us, but I think it was it Irma, Dave, that hit you guys in 2017 when they had all those back-to-back terrible storms in the Caribbean. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Puerto Rico lost most of their oldest restored sites. I don't know if you can correct me on that, Dave. So I think that what you see behind me in Laughing Bird might be representing some of the longest survivor data set so far.
Thank you, Lisa.
We lost Maya. Are you paying attention over there on Facebook? Is there any other questions? Well, with that, I mean, unless anybody, thank you again, everybody who took time out today. It's been an hour and 15 minutes. If anyone wants to ask anything else or make any other points, I think now is the time to do it. Otherwise, I will play another video. No, I'm just kidding. I will close this off. And I guess I would motion to have it adjourned. But again, don't let me override anybody. If anybody has a question or a comment they want to make, now would be the time. It seems no. So can someone, I guess maybe I shouldn't be the one to motion to adjourn. Maybe someone else could do that and then second it. And then that would be our AGM for 2021. Hopefully a Belizean participant, because this really is about our registration in Belize. So thank you everyone that's not in Belize for attending, but just kind of need it formally. Thank you, Vic. Thank you. And the second?
I second it, Tara.
Thank you, Tara. So on board, last call for any comments or questions. I think the meeting is adjourned, and thank you again, everybody, for taking time out to attend. And yes, this is on Facebook Live as well, but I can share the recording later, either individually or maybe put it on YouTube or something like that.
Nice presentation. Bye, Cami. Bye, Miss Linda.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
Oh yes, Key Cocker, we're coming there. Yep.